Hello and welcome back to April-May Codes. I know I'd said I'd work on planting things next time, but without the day transition, nothing's going to grow, so I've got to knock that out first. I'm going to do just a basic transition for now, not adding the days or time or seasons or anything like that yet. Just a way to progress the day so we can see the plants growing. So I'm in my Pygame Valley project. The only changes I've made are in Game State Manager, where I had the print statements when the left mouse button was clicked and when enter was clicked, I printed enter or left mouse. And I went ahead and deleted those print statements. So now I need to add a new zone to my game, which is the farmhouse, and that's going to be a state. So we'll go to states, make a new file, farmhouse.py. This will be done basically the same way as setting up the farm. So I'm going to go, actually I need to go to config.py and add the layers, because I believe each state, each zone is going to have its own layers because it'll have different items in it. So this will be farmhouse layers equal to a dictionary. Ground is 0. Then we've got furniture floor is going to be 1. Furniture is 2. And then main is 3. And that's all we need to do for that. So now that that's done, I'll go ahead and go back to farmhouse.py and work on creating the farmhouse. So I'm going to import Pygame. And we'll need to import some other stuff, but I'll do that as I get to it. So I'll go ahead and create the class farmhouse, which inherits from state, which means it needs self, game manager, a name, and it's also going to need inventory. I've tried passing the player to different zones by using self.game.player, just the current reference to the player that we have, but it just hasn't been working for me. So instead what I do is create a new instance of player and pass in the inventory to it, which is not the best way to do it, especially since as I continue building the game, I'm going to have other attributes like the health and the energy that I need to pass in that I'll probably have to pass in for each zone. So I may figure out how to do it a different way, but if not, this is how I'm doing it for now. So we'll do state.init. That's going to take self, game manager, and a name. And then we'll do self.inventory is equal to inventory. Self.allSprites will be equal to a camera group, just like on the farm. We'll need to import that. Self.collisionSprites is equal to pygame.sprite.group, and self.interactionSprites is equal to pygame.sprite.group. All right, and then when we initialize the farmhouse, we'll call self.setup, which we'll go ahead and create now. So we'll do def setup, take self, and then we're going to do our map data. So I need to copy the absolute path to my map. So we're going to do map data is equal to pytmx dot load pygame, and then I'll paste in my absolute path. And then the rest of this I'm going to copy in, or I'll copy in some of it rather, because a lot of it is very similar to what we did in creating the farm. So I'll just save some time by copying it over. And I'll go over each line here. We'll need to import interaction, need to import generic. All right, so we're doing for XY surf in map data.get layer by name ground.tiles. We need to import farmhouse layers as well. And I did these as 36 by 36 instead of 48 by 48. It's a smaller map, and I think it looks all right like this. But we're still going to transform the surf because the initial map size is 16. So we'll scale it up to 36 by 36. And then we'll do a generic class, the transform surf. We have the XY transform surf. Groups is self.allSprites. And then the layer is ground for the ground. We do the same thing for furniture floor, furniture, and then we do our collision. So that's for XY surf and map data.get layer by name collisions.tiles. We'll create an instance of the generic class. Position is x times 36, y times 36. Then we'll create a surface that is 36 by 36. And that goes in self.collision sprites. And finally, if for object in our map data.get layer by name player, we'll add these interactions. If object.name is equal to exit farmhouse, and I couldn't get it to work with the x and y, doing x times 2, y times 2. It should have, I feel like, but I'm not sure what I did wrong. So I just put the position in there, the object.width, object.height. That is an interaction sprite, and the name is object.name. And then if object.name is equal to bed, we do the same thing, but it's got a different position. I'm not sure why I multiplied the width by 2 here. I mean, I am. It's because we're doubling it. It was 16. Oh, that should be 32, shouldn't it? No wonder it didn't work when I did times 2 because it wasn't the right position. Well, I'm going to leave it as it is now because it works. And maybe I'll change it in the future. So we've got our object.width and height. It's in self.interaction sprites, and then the name is object.name. And finally, we need to create our player, and this is where inventory is going to come in. Let me scroll over some. So we'll do if object.name is equal to, what did I call it? Farmhouse start. Farmhouse start. Self.player is equal to a player. The position that they're going to start at is 680, 1016. And that should be a tuple. Self.GameManager.game, so pass the game reference to the player. Group is self.allSprites. And then we're going to pass in self.collision sprites, self.interaction sprites, and we need to do tree sprites first. So for the farmhouse, the tree sprites is none, and then self.interaction sprites. And then on the next line, oops, I've got extra lines there, extra spaces. We'll do self.player.inventory is equal to self.inventory. Let's import player. All right. And now we need an update function. Why is that got a line under it? Oh, no new line. That's not a big deal. So we'll go back. Let me minimize this a bit so we can see a bit better. Okay. And then we'll do def update. Take self. Am I indented enough? I should be. Why didn't it put self in there? There we go. Delta time and actions. So we'll do self.gamemanager.screen.fill config.black. I need to import config. Actually, we can just put black, and then up here we'll add black to what we're importing from config. So we'll do self.allsprites.customDraw self.player and self.allsprites.update, which will take delta time. All right, so now we have our farmhouse created, so we need a way to zone into the farmhouse. So I'm going to start by adding a zone function. And that's going to go in game because we're going to use this for all of our zoning. So we'll do def zone, and that's going to take self and a zone. If zone is equal to farmhouse, we'll do new state equals farmhouse, and that's going to take self.gamemanager, and then the name is farmhouse, and then self.player.inventory. And I think I'm actually going to get rid of the items in the player because I don't think I need to use it. It's just a duplication of effort basically. So we can get rid of this line here. All right, and then I can get rid of these lines here, and then we'll just unindent this. Right there, looks good. Because that adds it to the player.inventory, and this adds it to the player.inventory. So this checks, let's see, for each item in the inventory, if there's something in that slot, if that something is equal to the item, then we do plus equal amount. Otherwise, if it's not in the inventory, we'll do inventory.add, which will add it to the inventory. So yeah, that's exactly what we want. So then we'll go to player.py and go ahead and get rid of this items. Let me minimize this so I'm not trying to scroll past it all the time. And our items are somewhere in here. Oh, you know what? It's not in player, it's in inventory. So we'll go to inventory and we can get rid of that self.items, I think. I'll need a way to keep track of how many coins the player has. I wonder, will I do that in inventory or in the player? Well, that's a issue for another video. Today we're working on the transition. So back to game. We're going to create the new state. And then we're going to do new state dot enter state. And that will take us into the farmhouse. Let's see, what else do we need? Now we need to check if we are colliding with the farmhouse store when we hit enter. So we're going to do that in player in our input function. When we hit enter, this is right here. So we're going to do collided interaction sprite is equal to pygame.sprite collide self.interactions and false for do kill, because we don't want to kill it when we interact with it. We just want to check for an interaction. If collided interaction sprite, so if there is an interaction, if collided interaction sprite 0 dot name is equal to enter farmhouse, and if it is, we'll do self.zone farmhouse. And I'll need to, nope, not import that. That just needs to be a string. Okay. Now we can go ahead and check for the bed as well. So if collided interaction sprite 0 dot name is equal to bed, then we'll do self dot sleep is equal to true. And I don't have that sleep value anywhere in here, so I'll go ahead and add that. We'll just put that right here. Self dot sleep is equal to false by default. And we'll set it to true if we collide with the bed and hit enter. Okay, I think that is all we need to get us into the farmhouse. Oh, we don't add zone yet. So we need to add zone to player. So up here, after interactions, we're going to do zone. And then we'll just do self.zone is equal to zone. And then in farm, when we create the player, so down here, when self.player is being set, we'll just add in self.gamemanager.game.zone. And we're not calling it, we're just passing the function. And we need to do that same thing in farmhouse when we create the player. So we'll do self.gamemanager.game.zone. Okay. And I put that in player as well, zone equals zone. And then down in input, self.zone. So that should get us into the farmhouse. And it does. Perfect. Now if I interact with the bed, it should set sleep to true, but that's not doing anything yet. But now we don't have a way to leave the farmhouse. So let's add that. And that is going to go in collisions. Before we check for the collision sprites, we're going to check for interaction sprites because that's what exit farmhouse is. So we'll do for sprite in self.interactions.sprites if has attribute sprite name, if sprite.name is equal to exit farmhouse, then we're going to check if self.hitbox.collideRect with the sprite. And if that's the case, we're going to do self.zone farm. So we need to add that into game because right now we just check for if zone is equal to farmhouse. So if zone is equal to farm, then we're going to do self.gamemanager.statestack.pop. So that will just take off the farmhouse state, which will put us back in the farm state. All right, so now we should be able to enter and leave the farmhouse. Perfect. Looks good. And let me make sure that inventory is working when we enter the farmhouse. Because if we look at our inventory, we should have the seeds. Let's add one to the hotbar. And it's still in our hotbar, still in our inventory, and still there. Perfect. I wonder why we're able to get back to the farmhouse. I wonder if I put wood in my inventory and enter the farmhouse, when I come back, will the wood still be there? So we've got the wood in our inventory. It's still there, and it's still there. So why am I able to get back to the farmhouse, but I'm not able to get into the farmhouse without making a new player? That's an issue for another video. Now I need to set up the transition. So this is going to be a new state. So I'll go to states, make a new file, transition.py, and I need to copy my transition image, which I'm probably going to redo. I don't love this one, but for now it works. I'm just going to put this in a transition directory. We'll paste the image there. All right, now we'll create the transition class. So we'll import Pygame. From game, import config. And we're going to need to import states and menu as well, but I'll just click to import those. So class transition is a state and a menu. So init is going to take self, a game manager, a name, and then state.init will take self, a game manager, and a name. And then menu.init will take self and game manager. Let's import those two. Okay. Now self.image is equal to pygame.transform.scale pygame.image.load, and that is in assets / transition / transition.png. And the size is going to be config.screen width, config.screen height, because we just want it to be the full size of the screen. Self.rect is equal to self.image.getRect. And then we'll do our self.details x, self.details y is equal to self.midwidth, and then self.midheight plus 130, self.okx, self.oky is equal to self.midwidth, self.midheight plus 180. Self.cursorrect.midtop is going to be equal to self.details x minus 45, self.details y, because we're going to start it on details, because that's the top option. Okay. Then self.menu options. And I know when I did this before, I made it a dictionary that had a string that was like the menu option, and then the other value in it was the position. I realized I don't really need that string. So I'm just going to do a dictionary that has 0 as the details position. So self.midheight plus 130. And then 1 is self.mid-height plus 185. And then we'll do self.index is equal to 0. All right, now we need an update function, which takes self, delta time, and actions. We'll do self.moveCursor, which we'll make in a moment, and that's going to take actions. If actions, enter. If self.index is equal to 0, we're just going to pass. Elif self.index is equal to 1, then we're going to do self.exit state. And then down here, we'll call self.gamemanager.reset keys. So this should look pretty similar to the other menus. I've made the title screen and the load screen. Let's go ahead and make that move cursor function. Move cursor. We'll take self and actions. If actions down, self.index plus equals 1. If self.index is equal to 2, self.index is equal to 0. And then we'll do if actions up, self.index minus equals 1. If self.index is less than 0, self.index is equal to 1. And then we'll reposition the cursor rect. So self.cursorrect.y is equal to self.menuOptions, self.index. And now we just need a render function. Oops. Def render. We'll take self and surface. Surface.blit, self.image, self.rect. Then we'll do self.gamemanager.draw text on the surface. Text will be details. Size will be 40. Config.pink for the color. Self.details X, self.details Y. And we'll just copy that, paste it there. This is going to be OKY, OKX, and the text will be OK. And finally, we'll call self.drawCursor. So now we have our transition state created. So let's create a way to access it. We're going to do that back in player.py. In our input function, we check if the player collides with the bed, and if they do, we set self.sleep equal to true. So down in update, we're going to do if self.sleep, we're going to call self.transition. So let's go ahead and create that transition function. And that is just going to do self.sleep is equal to false because we're no longer sleeping. New state is equal to transition, which will take self.game.gameManager and a name, which will be transition. And we'll do new state dot enter state. We'll need to import transition. All right. And that should be everything. So now I should be able to enter the farmhouse, leave the farmhouse, go to sleep, progress to the next day. We hit OK. All right, we can exit the farmhouse. And we don't have any real way of testing this because I haven't put the days on the screen yet. So I will get to that in a couple videos. Next, I want to get the planting things down and handling the seeds and harvesting plants to make sure that everything can be added to the inventory properly. But soon after that, I'll work on getting the overlay updated with the season and the time and the day. So that is all for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or if you found it helpful, feel free to give it a like or a comment and subscribe to my channel to stay updated on my game progress. I'll see you next time.